I'm local. I've lived in the area since I left the Air Force in '99. Well, I spent 13 years as a medic. Was supposed to join Thames Valley Police, but I had a medical episode that prevented me from doing that, so I did a couple of years security or cash services before managing to get into the prison service. Let's see, 2002, 3, 4, 2004 to up to it closed. I spent a couple of years at Bristol Nick before I transferred to here. So yeah, I was here for basically 11 years. Discipline officer primarily, and then it sort of evolved into becoming a control and restraint instructor, method of sort of guy who teaches all the prison officers to get their ticket every year to be able to basically carry a baton, authorise their use of force procedures and stuff, and train all that, as well as obviously training the civilian staff in personal protection. On top of that, I was also a riot commander as well, so any incidents, riots, anywhere in the country, I could be called up to go and assist in taking back a prison or whatever. So any incidences that happened here, if I was on duty, I would usually be at the forefront to be consulted, let's put it that way. Never a typical work. The only typical part was work turning up and find out where you're actually working that day. Every day is different. I mean, when I started here on A wing first, and then I moved to B wing / segregation unit. So you just come in, pick up your keys, get changed if you haven't got changed already, or pick up your baton. Come in, see what your duties are, whether or not you're on the wing all day, or you're doing visits, or you're doing an escort out, or it could be anything, or even a parole board hearing sit-in just for security reasons. And then you go onto your wing and you just wait for the unlock. So you've got a bit of time to yourself to sort of have a chat with your fellow officers and stuff. And when the unlock's given, you go around and you just unlock every single prisoner. So there's 180 prisoners on B wing with 4 members of staff. And it's opening that door for the first time in the morning. You don't know what sort of day they've had or night they've had. It's not so bad in a Lyford jail, but in a local jail, you don't know what you want to walk into as soon as you open that door. So you unlock them all, and they go and get showered, they go and get their breakfast or whatever, and then it's basically keeping an eye on them, answering any questions, application forms for whatever, requests for maybe a new mattress because the mattress is too flat. I was always the one, my mattress is too flat. How long have you had it? 3 months. And then obviously answer any queries. In a prison environment, what people don't realise is that we literally control every prisoner's move. We unlock them, we tell them when to feed, we tell them when to shower, we tell them when to go to work, we tell them when to go to lunch, we lock them back up again for lunch, we unlock them after lunch, send them to work again, feed them again, lock them back up again, and that's it. That's basically the day, the core day, is unlocking and locking and maintaining the security on the wing. Everything is regimented, everything is timed down to the last minute. And that's basically it. You basically, the control room obviously has the set pattern of when they've got to do certain announcements, so like unlock, send to work, because once you're unlocked and everything else and you've sent them off to work, and officers then dissipate into the prison to do their other duties. But this is all depending on whether or not there's not a problem. If there's a problem, then everything gets delayed. It's just waiting to see what happens. You hope for a nice, lovely, calm, peaceful, easy day. And working in the life unit, you tend to usually get that. I think in more like working with lifers, they're more used to the regime. They actually get more upset if the regime changes, because
So they become almost
they
institutionalized.
institutionalize into that regime. Obviously, here they're on locked nearly most of the day, except during obviously lunchtime when we lock everybody up. So yeah, they're usually quite happy with like the openness of a life in jail, because you know we can't lock them in their cell 23 hours a day. It's just inhumane. And obviously, being lifers, we have an older population, so you get the older population issues. And I was a disability officer here. I think I must have might been the first proper one. I don't know, but anyway, so I was dealt with all the mobility issues, the health issues that involve prisoners day to day. So that's like getting personal allowance for those guys who risk of falling over or have serious health conditions that, you know, if they had an issue during the night and they couldn't get to the cell bell, they can press their personal alarm bell. Ensuring that anyone who comes here can actually walk up and down stairs. There's stairs everywhere. This is an old Victorian jail. It's not designed with wheelchairs in mind or people who have Zimmer frames. I've basically had to say, no, you can't come here. No, you can't come to this prison to do your course because you can't survive in this jail's environment. Which was a big downer, because obviously, you know, where we are now, how many stairs have we had to climb? You know, if you're fit and young, great. If you're not, nah, you know, it ain't happening. And that obviously affects work when you go over to the work site on the over the bridge. And that's where all the workshops are. That's where reception is. You know, there's literally 3 flights of steps going up, and then another 3 flights of steps that go up to the top of the building. It's not mobility issues. No, you don't usually come here, but we can make adjustments as anything, you know, to, you know, being work over for them or whatever, and they can work in their cell. You know, so it happens. I mean, at least at some prisons you get some form of like greenery. You don't get anything here. Like Guy's Marsh, for example, it's a wide open modern jail, and when you walk outside, you know, there's grass. You can actually walk on the grass. Yay, that's great. There's no grass here, it's all concrete. I suppose when I first came here after transferring from Bristol, I wasn't expecting a complete sort of environment change, if I could put it that way. Bristol was a local jail, local problems, in and outs, violence every day, you know. And I come here and I'm like, there's nothing happening. What's going on? There's nothing happening. So, because it was quieter than usual, or quieter than I've experienced in my first couple of years in the prison service. A little country town, and there's nothing happening. And I'm walking around the landing, and people saying, "Gav, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm not just wandering around." Really? Well, what's going on? Nothing. So, the prison officer prisoner relationship was very, very alien to what I've experienced. I've only experienced one type of thing. So it probably took me a good few months to get used to this non-happening jail, you know, prison. And it's very, very unnerving, because I was always taught if it's quiet, something's going on. This jail is practically always quiet, you know, nothing's going on. You know? So, yeah, it's like when opening a cell door in the morning in Bristol, you're taught to put your foot in the door just in case they try and slam the door in your hand, you know, or breathe out when you open the door because you don't know what's going to come out the cell with the air. So all those things, everything's different, you know. It's just it's the environmental change within the relationship of the staff to the prisoners, and which is always important, because basically the prisons, any prison operates on the well-being, the good behaviour of the prisoner. Because we're outnumbered heavily in some cases. You know, you've got 180 guys on the wing, and there's only 4 for unlock, and there's 3 during the core day. You know, and you've got to deal with cell searches, you've got to deal with applications, you've got to deal with all the paperwork, so it goes on and on. Plus then you've got to manage all the cleaners on the wing, make sure they're doing their job properly, as well as, you know, anything else that comes along. Yeah, people always ask me that question. So, are there any prisoners you got on well with? I think the term I was given when I first started is be friendly with them, but not friends. Because obviously, if you get friendly with them, then you get too involved with them. That's easy at Bristol. Here, it's not. We are basically their family in some cases. Some cases they haven't got any family, or the family's at the other end of the country. So we become basically part of their extended family. It's happened to me at Bristol. I got, because we got as personal officers, they get a group of prisoners assigned to you that you basically look after. You look after all of them, but there's a core that you have to look after personally. And at Bristol, this happened once. I got actually introduced to the entire family at visits in the visits hall. It was very uneasy because it's like, I'm just doing my job, but they go, oh, this is Mr. Beckinsale, blah, blah, blah. Yes, hello, granny, granddad, mum, dad. So yeah, so you get that, and the prisoners, they will know very quickly where you stand in everything, and how much can they sort of like misbehave or muck around, how much can they talk to you, what sort of language they can use with you. When you start off as a prison officer, the bit of advice was given to me was start off mean, then get nice, because it's easier going from mean to nice than nice to mean, which I did. And it sounds awful now, but I found it easier talking to them as if they were my 6-year-old daughter. It sounds weird, but it worked. It worked for me. It probably wouldn't work for another guy, but it worked for me. And whenever I met a new prisoner, first thing I say to them is, look, I would treat you with respect, but I would treat you the way I want you to treat me. And most of them went, yeah, okay, I understand that. And that's basically how I worked. Mutual respect, and they like that. I mean, let's say they've been punished, they've been sentenced, and then they're carrying out that punishment, but you're not there to punish them again, unless they do something that breaks rules. Okay? But so you're basically there, you look after them, make sure they get on, hopefully rehabilitate them, get them back out in the community. That's the prison officer's job, not to judge them. They think that they should come here and be like worked to the bone, or anything else, hard labour, or Victorian's cases, treadmill, or turning the screw, which is the old thing with it. That's where the term screw comes from, because they turn the screw to make it harder to crank the wheel. Punishment cells, that doesn't work. No. In a way, yes, we have segregation units, or I think they're called now care and separation units now. Not segregation units. Segregation is too harsh a word in this day of PC. There is a prison within a prison. Always is, always will be. I worked at the Guys Marshes. It was horrendous. It was really, really hard work. Here we only had maybe 2-3 cells, if I can remember rightly, for our segregation unit. They were hardly ever used. We had put guys in there, obviously, who had, done something really bad, like mobile phones or drugs or assault or anything like that, all for their own protection. But in the end, working with prisoners, you work with them as a person, not with them as what they've done. Yes, you know what they've done because you've read their file. You know some of the horror stories that you see these guys have done. People will say, well, why would you work with them? Why would you care for them? Why would you feed them? Don't give them any food. And they go, no, they're human beings in the end. Yes, they've done horrible crimes. Yes, they've been punished by their peers. They've been sentenced by their peers, and now they're serving out that sentence. And it's up to us as officers not to baby them or cuddle them when they get sad. They're there to make sure they work, they attend their courses, they're safe, they're fed. All these things that every human is entitled to, no matter whether they're in prison or not. In this country, you're lucky. Prisoners get fed, they get clothed, they get bedding, they get work, they get a chance to visit their family, they get hospital care. look at some other countries around the world, you're lucky if you can get a bed. You know, or in America, wherever you walk around in chains. Yeah, it's a different life. Yeah, you know, we're not armed except with a baton, an extendable baton. We have no body armour. You know, so we have a white shirt, maybe a jumper if it's a bit too cold. You know, so that's about it. You know, being ex-military, I did come across a lot of ex-military in prison as prisoners. Some of them, you know, I have probably actually met, but not actually known about it. There's one guy I know, he was Navy, he was based out in Cyprus when I was out in Cyprus during the first Gulf War. We were actually at the base at the same time, and we actually attended a rescue together. He was in the boat, I was in the helicopter. And that's how weird it can get sometimes, you know. And you just go, really? Wait a minute, did you go to the... and suddenly they go, and then you go, oh, bloody hell, you know, that's close. And, you know, that's just the way it is, you know. It's like if you get like a relative or someone you know from, you know, gets brought into your prison, you just go, oh, my God, oh, I know him. What's he doing here? It's that point, you know, the prison service have, or still, I assume they still have, policy that if anyone who you know is being sentenced to prison, which has happened to me, I've had a close, not friend, but acquaintance of other friends who I knew, the sentence, I said to him, right, this is the prisoner, blah, 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 you can't come to this prison because I'm here. And they go, right, okay, can't go to whatever prison you're at. But yeah, so it's all diverse. You've got guys who are like, you know, come from well-off families, you know, and do a crime because they think, you know, I can get away with that because I'm well off. So the guy who's actually got absolutely nothing and is there by accident because he needs something to eat or something else. So you've got your accidental prisoners, you've got your professional prisoners, and you've got the guys who just don't give a shit. So I looked at everyone as a blank canvas. When you get to know them, then you can look, oh, this is why this has happened. He, you know, got into a fight in the bar, he was protecting somebody, and the guy he was fighting fell over, cracked his head open and died. And he's like, yeah, that guy is totally remorseful. Then you've got your guys who just do it because it's great fun to do. You know, they were part of a gang, or, you know, they're habitual criminals, you know, like the revolving door criminal, you know, in one door and out the other and back in again. But in the, you know, you can't, even though that's in your head, you can't really sort of like do it out loud. You've got to treat them all exactly the same, well, not exactly the same, but you've got to treat them all similar. You can't really show any favouritism, because then that causes problems with the other prisoners. Oh, you let him do it, so why can't I do it? You know, so, and that's where basically your own personal line comes from. This is my line. You cross it, you get Mr. Angry. You know, you know, at Bristol, I was taught I always fought dirty at Bristol. Apparently, prisoners. So you fight dirty, Mr. B. Well, don't piss me off then. You know, so. And like I say, prisoners respect the barriers. You know, they'll push, and you just go. But again, it's all about your interpersonal skills and how you develop the relationship between you and the prisoners coming in. So being that friendly but not friends. You know, you're not going to, you know, meet up down the pub when they get out. You know, meet down the pub when they get out. All right, yeah, no, it doesn't happen. You know, you've got to have that barrier. For a job that everyone thinks is probably the most darkest job in the whole wide world, I really liked it. I didn't think I would, because when I first started, I was going, I wanted to get out. I wanted to get back into government service. When I left the Air Force, and the first 6 months, I was just like, oh my God, what have I let myself into? But as you get into it, and you sort of figure out the little bits and pieces that will go together to being a prison officer, you suddenly find you enjoy it, because again, like I said before, how you approach the job and how you approach each and every prisoner makes your job easier. And here, obviously, with lifers, it's a bit more intense, because, like I said before, sometimes we are the only family that they have, which is sad in a way. but regrettably, it is true. So yeah, I did enjoy my job. If I give it a score out of 10, I would give it a 9, because obviously that one little point could be the day when you're ending up rolling around on the floor, or dealing with, a serious incident with somebody who's decided they don't want to carry on with life anymore. Which is obviously that thing in there, our American guy. That really, really hit me harder than I thought it would. No, Michael Vansdell, he was an American. He'd been sentenced to murder, and for as long as I can remember, because I can't remember when he actually arrived at the jail. As long as I can remember, the prisons have been trying to get him back to the US to serve a sentence there, but the Americans wouldn't have him. They didn't want him back because they said they couldn't give him the support that we wanted. We would normally give support to a lifer in the community when they're on license. So it was always this like backwards and forwards between the Home Office and the State Department. So we were dealing with Michael, really nice guy, Texan boy, which is great because we had a Texan prison officer. It was hilarious. Those two talking, the old Texan swang coming out is brilliant. But he was a nice guy. It sounds awful to say because he committed murder, but he was a nice guy. And yeah, he had his problems, but when he had problems, he always let us know that he had a problem so we could keep an eye on him a bit closer and make sure he was okay. And this happened going on for years and years, until basically just before the prison swapped over to a joint prison with Elstoke. For some reason, he decided that whatever day it was, he was going to finish it that night. So he broke his complete routine of asking for help every time. And after the last check at night, which is usually around 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that, he knew that we would not look at him again until first count in the morning. So a good 8 hours. So he decided to take his life. He actually hung himself with a shoelace tied to the top bar of his outer window. So I came in the morning, just thinking, I was standing in the detail office, seeing what I was doing, and suddenly I see an SO who I know very well running past, and he suddenly stopped from the back and said, "Phil, come with me, quick." Shit, what's going on? And I went up there and I went in. Now, we had a prisoner at the time who was basically terminal cancer. He was not expected to last very long. So I thought it was obviously him, because he was close to passing on. But instead of turning right, we went left and up on B wing. And there's the night officer there, and he's like visibly shaking. And all he said to me was, "It's Michael." I went, "What?" So I looked for the flap, and that's when I saw Michael. Because night staff don't have cell keys for security reasons, he couldn't obviously go in. So I was first in, and I went round, and as soon as I saw him, I went, "No, he's gone." He just, it was like, he's gone. And, it was like a strange thing to happen, but we thought, we'll cut him down just for, basically for, but he'd been there for so long, the rigor set in, and he just literally perched his bum on the radiator, and we're like, well, what do we do? But it's like, when I put my hands on him, I was like, "Oh, Michael, what the hell have you done?" And that was really hard. I think I lasted until about 10 o'clock that morning before I had to go home. And even though that happened, yes, and there was a lot of delay, because obviously the whole thing had changed. The police have got to come in, ambulance have got to come in, the guys being in to pick up the body had to come in, statements galore and everything else. But the rest of the prisoners, when we went round saying, "Sorry, it's going to be like Michael's passed on," and everyone was like, "No problems, go. We'll wait." Because to them, they're losing a member of their family too. I mean, for the officers, it's difficult, more difficult when you've been working with that guy for a long time, and you've known him and you know his situation and everything else. But it's like, as someone said at the initial sort of like inquest in the prison, says in their eyes, it was probably the only way he knew he could get home, which in a way was true. You know, we sent the ashes home and everything. We had a funeral here for him. Sent the ashes home to his parents. You know, obviously they were informed of everything that's going on. But yeah, it was really, really, really hard time. And you know, I've dealt with death before, loads of times. You know, serious injuries, you know, catastrophic injuries and attempted suicide. I've dealt with all that. But losing Michael was probably really, really the worst I have felt towards a person who was not related to me, because I was just really sad for that. Was they thought that was the only way that they could get home, was to actually take their life. Yeah, that's what usually happens. You usually get when you hear it on the news, or so and so, big sort of like celebrity prisoner, you know, well-known prisoner. Like when Sutcliffe killed himself, when Sutcliffe died, people going, yay, he's dead. Oh, whoa, hang on a minute. What about the guys who had to look after him day in, day out? The guys who he was in contact with day out. Yes, he may have treated them like second-class citizens. You know, that's what, you know, prisoners of that stature with that mental health probably would do. But in the end, these guys looked after him, were in contact with him every day, and that contact builds up a relationship. You know, that friendly, being friendly but not friends relationship. And when you lose a prisoner, be it by natural causes or not, the whole community of the prison is affected, from the governor all the way down to the cleaners. Everyone who knew him would be affected. And that's when obviously chaplaincy comes in, the care team come in. You know, they all rally around. And in some way, the prisoners are just as important into recovery than all those other things that the government supply for you. When that happened, the day it happened, I was there till about 10 o'clock before I literally had to go because I couldn't cope. It was, you know, yes, staff are going, oh, you're right, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just, you know, just trying to process it. But it was the prisoners who I worked with, especially with my disability issues. Stuff. All the prisoners coming to when they've obviously heard, because they obviously spread around the jail really, really quickly. They'll come up and say, "You're right, Mr. B." I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Do you want to come have a chat?" It's like when I was at Bristol, I got assaulted at Bristol by a prisoner. I ended up having a scrap on the stairs. It was another prisoner who raised the alarm. And that prisoner basically came up to me and said, "So when it goes to court, Mr. B, I will go to court and stand up for you." I said, "Yes, thank you, that's very nice, but I don't want you to put you at any risk of being aggressed or anything like that." And that comes from your relationship that you build up with your prisoners, and only you can do that. Like I said to you before, you know, it's like porridge. You got Mr. Mackay and Mr. Barraclough. You have Mackay, you have Barraclough. The ideal prison officer is in the middle of those two. So you've got the harshness of Mr. Mackay, all the drill, and you know, you have to do this, you have to do that. To Mr. Barraclough saying, "You're right, everything okay." And the comedy between it, there's comedy in a jail. It's not dark comedy, as people might think. Sometimes it's really light-hearted comedy, and it's hilarious. You have laughs, you have jokes. You've got to in here, and you can't dismiss that humour out of hand, because sometimes it's the only way a prisoner can cope. Like it's the only way a prison officer could cope. That dark humour, that banter, which I've been used to all my life, because Air Force for 13 years, you know, all you had was banter. Not very PC, but we had the banter. And of course all the characters involved, you know, you've got to be able to adjust to every single one of them. Some will more likely respond to somebody more like a Mackay, but most of them will respond to more someone like a Barraclough. You know, if you're going into a cell because you think there's a mobile phone in there, you go in first thing in the morning. You know, you turn up early, 6:30, bang bang, thank you very much, hello. You know, you go in and that's your Mackay. Yes, you know the prisoner very well, but that's your Mr. Mackay. You know, and once you've taken them to the seg, done all the stuff you need to do, and they locked him in the seg and say, right, stay there until you go and see the governor. Then that comes in, you turn to Mr. Barclough to make sure, are you all right now? You got any injuries, any problems, any issues? So you got to jump between these two, and it's difficult to do when you first start. But when I became a CNR instructor, use of force instructor, and sort of like riot trained as well, and method of entry trained as well, you have a definite line. Yes, your CNR stuff is all at the top end. You're deadly serious. Everything's done by book. Because you've got to look after prisoners, you've got to look after staff. You've got injuries and that sort of stuff. So you do all your training with the officers, and then when you do it in incident, you've got to go into a cell. Usually it's 3 of you in a cell. Sometimes you have a shield. Sometimes you're all kitted up, with stab vests and everything else. That's the serious bit that people think we do it every day in, day out. Mostly it's the, Mr. Buck, how are you doing today? You're all right. Bristol, I remember vividly reading a letter to a 50-year-old man who couldn't read or write about his daughter's wedding, and then having to write the letter back to his daughter on his behalf. That was something I never thought. He's 50 years old. He should be able to read and write. But then suddenly it opened up to me this whole expanse of, those who are well educated to those who are not. Depending on the background, the poor background, usually the less illiterate they are, and so on and so forth. So it's having to adjust to every single prisoner, no matter where they are. Even if you're taking them out to a hospital appointment and they're handcuffed up, that is, to the prisoners, sometimes really, really degrading, because you're there in a waiting room with a prisoner handcuffed to you. Sometimes double handcuffs, so they're handcuffed to themselves and then handcuffed to a prison officer. And you get the looks. Ooh. Look, it's a prisoner. Oh, he's handcuffed. He must be really bad. And you just go, shut up. Because what people don't also realise is that when we're on duty, we hold the full powers of a police officer. So we can arrest somebody if need be. I mean, I remember getting out from here, going to Bath Hospital, and having to fight over the last car park space. Our driver was trying to back up to get into this car park space, but the car came right up behind us because he wanted that space. So I'm not having this, I'm getting out. So I got out of my uniform, and the guy reversed back so quickly, it was quite hilarious. So yeah, you have a bit of fun that way. It is quite funny when you're walking down and suddenly it's like parting of the waves, and people are part of the waves go around you. They're sort of like, I don't know whether it's the staff or it's just the group of guys, the 3 guys. There'd be one officer not cuffed up, but we've still got our batons. We're still in uniform. But yeah, I always remember that day when I got out. I've done it. I did it a few times. I'm going, you going to move your car? No, right, okay, I'm going to get out. And, I've got to move my car now. Everything changes. And again, it's that authority figure. You're there. You're an authority figure. You're in uniform. You're there not just for the prisoner to have his appointment. You're here for his safety from members of the public, and also the safety of the public from him. So you've got that balance again. Yes, not all prisoners, because they got handcuffed on. Not all prisoners are bad people. It's just what we have to do. But yeah, sometimes you can get some right comedies going on, because people just look at you and go, "So this prison officer, he's a bad man. He's a prison officer. No, I'm a good guy. He's the bad guy." Oh God. It all depends on what you want to do. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to be confident in yourself. It's not a job that you tend to want to do as a kid. Oh, when I grow up, I want to be a prison officer. No, it's usually one of these accidental jobs that you fall into. It's a physical, mentally demanding job. And if you can't cope with confrontation, noise, crowds, and so on and so forth, it's probably not the job for you. saying that though, it all comes down to you as a person and how serious you take life. Because being a prison officer, you've got to have that flexibility to be able to shrug off some of the most serious things you ever see as a normal occurrence, depending on what prison you go to. I really enjoyed my work as a prison officer for the 13 years I did. I absolutely loved it. And, you know, you're looking at, well, what can I say? You're looking at, you know, the way that it changes you as a person. Personally, it's changed me too much. I'm medically not allowed to work anymore. I have PTSD and various other wonderful mental health issues that I worked on at the moment. But I would never, ever, I wouldn't change anything. You know, yes, I've had some really bad experiences, but I've also had some good ones, some good results as well. Yes, I have saved, you know, a couple of prisoners' lives just because of what I did, or I have protected a prisoner from being seriously assaulted, or if I'm going into a cell, where two prisoners have a mobile phone, it's having that turn of mind to go in knowing you've got to put that guy against the wall to get and to realise that this guy is actually really, really scared of what's just happened, and you just walk him out by a hand, which I've done. You know, gone in there with the team behind me, ready to get this guy and bend him up, as it were. Stop and go, hang on, guys. You all right? Do you want to come out? Yeah, get your hand in. And walked him out. And I go, what? The other team is literally scrapping on the floor. My team is walking this guy out by the hand. That is sort of, you know, that comes with experience. And doing that gives you a hell of a lot of respect with the prisoner, because suddenly it's like, okay, this prison officer is not that bad. In fact, that prisoner would come and say hi to me every morning. He saw me. Hi, Mr. B, how are you doing? Yeah, no problems, mate. You're right. So if you want, it's a very rewarding job, but it's no means the most easiest of jobs. It is probably one of the most stressful jobs going, right in the top 3, you know. And as long as you can put up all the bureaucracy, all the paperwork, all the, you know, the guidelines that keep changing every week, you know, it can be a rewarding job. But you need to get your mindset straight away. You know, give that first few months, that stuff when you're doing your probation. You know, really look at it and say, right, can I cope with this for another 20, 30 years? I would say don't come in this job straight from school. Come into this job from another job. So if you're ex-forces, yeah, it's great because it's that sort of regimented sort of thing, disciplinary, all that sort of same sort of thing. But if you come from another background, another sort of job area, and then take that into the prison service, then you'll find you have something to give almost straight away. So yeah, but yeah, it is a choice you have to really, really think about because of the whole situation and the stigma as well that comes with it. You know, people ask, "Oh, you do? I'm a prison officer." "Oh, you're a prison guard." "No, I'm a prison officer. I don't guard anything." You know, or prison warder. "No, I'm not a warder. That's back in the 1900s. You know, like back in the 1800s. So I'm a prison officer. I always shout at the television when I hear that. Yeah, we're officers. We're not guards. So someone said to me, "What, you know, if you look at like person A, you know, when they walk to work, you know, like a police officer, for example, when they walk their beat, they're walking past, you know, children, civilian shopkeepers, mums, kids, dads, whatever, and that sort of stuff, and the occasional odd criminal. When I walk my street, I'm walking past some rapists, murderers, child offenders, sex offenders, shoplifters, and so on and so forth. That's my street. You know, so, you know, yeah, you've got the police officer, yeah, it's a very hard, difficult job, I understand it, but you get most police officers would never become a prison officer because all I deal with is murderers, rapists, child offenders, blah, 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 so all the bad people. You get none of the good stuff, you get all the bad stuff. People should see what's like behind the wall and see that, yes, it's not, you know, it's not as comfy. Yes, they had their TVs, they can have PlayStations or whatever, as long as they weren't linked to the internet, you know, it's fine. You know, they have radios, you know, They have bedding, food, all that sort of stuff. But in the end, it is a cell. It is a small cell, usually about 6 by 6, if you're lucky. You know, especially these ones. Some of them are so narrow you can't even. You can stretch your hands out and you can touch walls on both sides. So yeah, it's not nice. You've got that little window at the top, especially here because it's an old Victorian jail, so it's like, light. You don't deserve light. How dare you wish to have sunlight? So it is. They're dank. They're awful. They're cramped. You've got 2 guys in there who sleep there, wash there, do their ablutions in there. Luckily I wasn't in the prison service when they had slopping out. I can't think of anything worse. Yes, in Porridge they had slopping out, but they obviously didn't show it graphically. But we're opening up the door and the smell apparently was coming out of the cells. So you open up all your cells and everyone's walking out with their buckets of slop, and you're thinking, please don't throw it over everybody, because that could happen as well. They get angry. Oh, take that! Oh God! Ooh. Yes, thank you very much. Clean up on aisle 3, please. But no. So yeah, but still, you're taking your ablutions behind a metal screen where your mate's head is to put in his bed, and you're doing that, and it's a very close. Humans aren't designed to be intimately close like that in a confined environment. It's all great in a house. You can open the door and just walk out. You can't do that in a prison. You're there. Once that door's shut, that's it. It's not opening again till whenever. So getting people to come in and say, look, this is what it was like. I'm going to put, when I did the first tour here with National Heritage, went around to the SEG area, and I said, this is the SEG area. So it's like basically a cell, but it's got nothing in it apart from a bed and a sink and a toilet. That's it. Okay. So I always say, right, just get in there. I'm going to shut the door. I'll pull, because there's no lock on it. They're taking all the locks off. But I would slam the door like I would normally do, and to see their reaction, they go, so you're in there for 30 seconds and you couldn't cope. Imagine being in there for 25 years. That is it. So yeah, it's nice when people say that this is it. This is the regimental. These are the bars, because the bars are the big thing. This is the suicide netting. Why have they got netting up there? Because they tend to jump off the top if they wanted to, try and kill themselves. And they see all this and they go, oh, I never knew. Of course you never knew. It's behind a massive wall. No one knows. Except if you worked here. So it's good that people come in and see it around. But when you first thought there were people like, oh, I can't believe it. And we'd walk around and stand them in the corner where the bodies are buried in the prison. Says, do you know you're on top 6 graveyards at the moment? What? Yes, when you were sentenced to life or sentenced to death in those days, you were sentenced to death, life incarcerament and life incarcerament after life. So you'd never leave the prison. Say Bristol's got one in the corner of one of the exercise yards is where there's 12 graves. Prisoners don't know they're there. They're happily playing basketball and everything else. If they actually knew there's graves there, they'd probably wet themselves. But it's like you get all that, and it's like Yes. Oh, it's stories you get from those who have been here way longer than you have. And then there's experiences that you go, I can't explain that. There's on night shifts when you're doing night work and you're on yard patrol, so you're not actually on the wing, because that's the officers aren't on the wings at night. It's OSGs, except for on B wing. You would, if wandering around, you got to do every hour. You got to wander around the prison just to make sure no one's trying to climb out a window that they wouldn't be able to get out of anyway. But as you come around to where the old treadmill block is, where there used to be the lifer unit, where all the lifer administration was. I went around there once, and as I went around there, the lights came on the top, on the top floor. No one should be up there, but no one should be in there at all. So I went up there, had a look, nothing. I turned the light off, come back down. An hour later, I'm walking around again, and the same thing happens. The light's back on again. I'm going, what the bloody hell? I got my radio, says, anyone mucking around with the lights in the lifer unit? No, not us. I'm going to leave it on. If whatever is up there wants to have the light on, then they can have the light on. So that's that one. Then there's the 2 a.m. in the morning ghosts on B wing. Around about 2 a.m. I would hear footsteps going down B wing on landing 2, ground 1, 2, and it would turn and then stand on one of the crossways, and then I would hear keys rattling, and I'm going, go out there and it's pitch black, no one there. Yeah, I definitely heard keys rattling, and I definitely heard footsteps going down the landing. So that's that one. There's the little boy on the corner of the yard, carrying in the corner of the yard. That's another one that's been. I haven't seen that personally, but that has been reported. And obviously got the grey lady. The story goes, because I wasn't there when it happened. The story goes, they're all in the office. The wings all locked up. And suddenly there's this automatic ruckus coming from, I think it's cell 1A. Ruckus is going off. Prisoners banging on the door. And they're going, oh crap, what's going on? So they go to the door and they open up, and the guy's banging, let me out. And there's the other prisoners lying on the floor. So they opened the door, and basically the prisoner was just literally barged himself out and ran to the furthest corner of the cell with the wing, going, please don't let her touch me. And they're going, what? So they go in there and they rouse this guy, and they go, is she gone yet? Who? The woman that came through the wall and sat on my bed. And yeah, so there we go. That's that one. Basically, it's from what I've been told, is that she's looking for her husband. But that's the story I got told, and I can honestly believe it, because this place, it creaks and everything else. Like, oh, it's just creaky noises, and then I said, no, it's not. People have actually seen these and experienced it. I think someone mentioned to me on Life Unit that he was there one day and his cup went. Yeah, it actually moved.
So the grey lady was seen in what wing?
B wing.
B wing, it was B wing.
Yeah, B18, if I remember rightly. But yeah, so it is haunted. Yeah, that's why we never told any prisoner who was in B18 that this has happened. Although we'll probably never ever be able to use B18 ever again. Yeah, things that happen. You do see things, you do sense things. You feel someone following me or whatever. But in this place at night, especially when you're walking around at night on your own, doing your checks and everything else, it's like, oh, I'm going to turn the lights on. Go, turn the light off! Oh, sorry. You torch out, and you get that sort of like feeling and everything else. The old classic, you walk into a room, something gets really cold. Yeah, that's happened a lot. But yeah, it is quite weird. I'm going to say this place is 400 years old as a prison. It's going to have something or other. I've always believed that there's something other than there's something spiritual going on. I have it's just one of those things. Do you believe it or not? But there's always been something in me about it. Spirits and that sort of stuff. But when you actually experience something that you can't explain logically, I can hear footsteps on the landing, yet I'm the only one on the wing. You sort of stand there and you go, there's no one here. There's no one actually out. All the doors are locked. I know they're all locked. So there has to be something. But yeah, it's. I think when they do the ghost nights here, whatever, there's going to be more of the paranoia. The fact there's an old prison, it gets really cold, it creaks. So you walk around and you can hear joists, all the stuff creaking and everything else. So it's all about your perception. But when you've worked here and you've spent nights here, and things have happened, there's only 2 people out of the wings when on nights. That's the 2 guys that are walking around, the 2 officers, one SO and the officer. everybody else is locked on wings or in the control room, you know. So there has to be something about it. And those light things that just sticks in my head with the old treadmill house. I would say every prison is dark, because of just what it is, the place that it is. But since there's varying degrees of darkness, you know, yeah, it's not pitch black dark. I would say it's more of a light grey dark. You know, there's the humour in it, and the fact that it's a one community, an enclosed community, that with the prisoners they make do with what they can, with what they have, the opportunities that they're given. The staff are there to look after them, make sure everything's okay and everyone's safe. Yes, there are dark days, you know, like Mikey Vansdall, for example, but then you have your good days when everything seems to go right and everyone's having a laugh and a joke. So you're varying between the two, and like I've said previously, it's how you work within the prison environment that makes it dark or light. If you go in there with an absolute hell of a head on or mood because you had an argument with the wife the night before, day morning off, you're going to carry that into the prison and you're going to carry that with you. You know, you're always said whatever you bring to the prison, you leave at the prison gate. You don't take it in with you.